Alright guys, tonight we're going to do a clock spring on a 2014 Kia Sorento. Step 1, disconnect the battery. This will be on here. That's a 10 mil socket. So you just get a short well and a little extension to help you out. 10 mil, disconnect the battery. Step 2, come into the vehicle. There will be on the side of the steering wheel, there'll be a Torx bit. It's a T30. That's one side. Come over to the key side. There'll be a second one. T30, same thing. Back those off. Wiggle your steering wheel around a bit. This will pop off. You'll spin this all around. Mine has already been disconnected. But you will reach up in here. You will disconnect all the controls. So this will be the controller, like for all your steering wheel controls. That's the main connector. This will run through this little plastic clip along with this one. These two will be in here. You'll disconnect the plastic clip, get that up and out. You'll need something small to get. I use my knife, but these connectors will be down on here. You will get something to pry up on them, pull these clips up, and then they will just wiggle on out. But that's how they lock, is this up and down position. So down is locked, up is unlocked, and then you just tug them out. So you disconnect all this. Whoops. We'll set that aside. And then back there you can actually see the clock spring in the back. You can even make it move a little bit. We'll get this out of our way. After this, what I'll do is I'll get a Sharpie and Sharpie the stud, the nut, and onto the steering wheel, just so I don't have any alignment issues once I go back to reinstalling everything. To get that nut off, it's going to be a 21 millimeter. So that'll go on there like that. And I'm gonna have to use two hands for this because obviously, as you can see, the steering wheel turns. So I have to hold the wheel and break this nut off. Alright guys, once you get the bolt off, the nut off, sorry, as you can see there's all my alignment Sharpie marks. And professionals are gonna tell you that you need a steering wheel puller. Special tool, basically it grabs onto the whole wheel and then it applies pressure into the stud and it pulls this whole assembly out. If you honestly just have some road rage and you give it some good pulls, and eventually it'll pop right off. So now your steering wheel comes out. Set that to the side. Now we can actually see the clock spring. So with this clock spring, we're going to have to take these Phillips out, and then the bottom cap should come off, and along with the top cap, I believe, if we need to. So I took the two front ones off. There's also a secret, well, hidden one up here on the very bottom. So it's underneath your dash. Alright, so once you get all the screws out, the three of them that we talked about, the two in the front, the one down below, what you're going to need is to get like a little pry bar or something when this is enclosed, because there's a little clip here and here, and then there's two on the side here and here. So these clips might be a little bit a pain in the butt. The only other one is that around the key switch, there'll be, it's like it's plastic. I don't really think it's, might be rubber, I don't know, it's just like really stiff rubber. It's hard to get it to bend and everything, so just be kind of careful with it, especially if it's brittle. But that kind of jams you up because you really can't get away from the keyhole too much. Like I said, the important part is snapping those pieces off. And then once you it seems like it has a fabric backing, so I'm not going to pull it out because I don't need to get any further than this. This one I'm just going to drop down as much as possible because I now have access to my clock spring. So now we're going to pull the clock spring out. Actually, before we start on the clock spring, so pulling it out, the first thing is that there's a wire connectors below it, that yellow one and the white one. So those need to be disconnected. So the white connector is a normal like push up in the back, and then this one is actually a slide. If you just put your fingernail in here or any kind of tool, and if you push towards the back, you'll feel it slide and then it comes off. Again, the bottom of that one is like a slider disconnect. Moves from forward to back. So just a little different orientation on that one, but just so you know. So to get a clock spring off, there's the very top one, there's a tab. Pull up on it lightly, and then there's a few others. You just kind of work your way around and then it pops off. So you take that off, and now this clock spring is removed. Trying to see if I can tell a direct fail point. Honestly, it'll probably be internally, but I don't see anything out of whack yet. Alright, well, we'll carry on. Here's a side-by-side comparison to, this is OEM. And this is aftermarket that I bought on eBay. And I can post that link in the description. And this here is the tab to make sure that the inner rotator doesn't move. So right now it's in a locked position, and that's so you know it's dead center, and basically the wires in here, they don't get wound too tight somehow. So obviously with this one, I think there's probably something internal going on with this one, but this one will move. Well, of course now it won't. Not having too much success with one hand, but anyways, that's what this tab is for. So we'll remove it after I install it onto the shaft here, so that way everything stays nice and lined up. Okay, so going back on, now it's still technically off right now. What I went ahead and did is I clipped on the two back wires just so I can push them on hard enough, and you push on them till you hear them click. Gotta make sure you do that, otherwise you don't want these wires jiggling out. Other than that, line it up as straight as possible, start pushing till you hear them all click in. Make sure they're all locked in there nice and tight. It's starting to rain on me, so I gotta close the door. Alright. Other than that, now we're just going to start reversing the order and putting everything back together. I'm going to go ahead and leave this clip on. I'm just going to leave it on as long as possible, until it gets in the way of the install. I believe it'll probably be when the steering wheel goes back on. But other than that, I'm just going to leave this little tab on here. This was, like I said, it was just built in with the shipping. But this will be removed to let the clock spring do its job. Okay, so we got the bottom back on, so then we're just going to go ahead and snap on this top. Make sure all four corners take. That doesn't look good, so I might have to take that back off and redo it. There we go. So I'll just keep fiddling with this until that goes on right. But otherwise, we'll snap this top back on. I don't know if anyone else knew this. I've honestly had this car for 5 years, but the steering wheel obviously goes up and down, but it also goes in and out. I didn't know that, so just a little added feature I didn't know about. Alright, top piece is back on, and time for the steering wheel. Gotta make sure we feed these wires through the top here. So these wires got to go through here. Otherwise, I mean, if you went up here, they wouldn't be hidden. Make sure you don't go through the middle, all that good stuff. You know, don't go through here. It's got to go through here. All right. Okay, so I fed the wires through here. I was still able to leave this tab on for now. You know, it's kind of a tight fit to get to pull it off, but you know, I want to leave it in there as long as possible. As of right now, it'll be time to put the nut on. We see my alignment is pretty good, so we'll go ahead and put the nut back on. Make sure the tapered side is towards you. That way you're not putting the nut on backwards. The nylon is facing your side, and that's how it's you know, Loctite. So there is a torque spec to this. I don't really know it. I'm gonna go ahead and go with German engineering and just call it good and tight. That's gonna be my torque spec. But this part is at your own risk. Alright guys, so I went ahead and tightened this down. As you can see, I kind of went a little bit past where it used to be, so it's a little bit tighter. Which is not necessarily a bad thing. Threads can even stretch. It'd be pretty minimal. I think I would go ahead and recommend, as you can see, I removed the the plastic tab that it shipped with. I'd probably move it before or even, you know, during, once you get this snug, because as I started torquing this down, I heard this popping and I was breaking the plastic on this. So basically it was doing a spinning motion. So yeah, I would remove this piece before you start torquing this down. So now I went ahead and connected all my steering wheel controls, which would be for the radio, phone, cruise control, audio. But I'm going to go ahead and the only thing I don't like about this one is that, so with the OEM, all of this was in one wire sheath. So now I got to fit these two and this one into this plastic clip. It's a pretty big clip, so it's not a big deal, but just a, you know, a little bit more of a hassle from OEM that these were all together. So, alright, so I got them all to fit in this plastic clip. So now all three wires are through there. I already went ahead and plugged this one in. And then with these, like I said, make sure that they're in the up position. And then we'll go ahead and connect them. So they drop down and then push the lock. And I'll give them a little jiggle, make sure they're in there good. Push that one down in, make sure it's seated. We'll go ahead and push the clip back on. Now they're both in the locked position. And as you can see, so those T30s that are down here, they stay in the steering wheel. I'm gonna go ahead and just make sure that they're at least flush. And then that way when I put the steering wheel back in, they just feed into these two screws right here, these threads. So on this side and this side. So let's go ahead and turn this whole assembly around. And I kind of go from the bottom side first. I angle that in. And then I just kind of wiggle it around. Kind of pick it up and down. And you'll feel it kind of take a seat in there. It'll rest on those hooks on the metal framing. Like I said, you gotta get, so there it went. So you just kind of give it a wiggle, honk the horn, make sure it feels nice, free and clear. And now you're ready again for that T30. So the T30 are 6 points. They do make certain tools that are, they're 5 points. So make sure you have the 6 points. I mean, obviously you'll feel it if it doesn't fit. Other than that, just reach back around here, tighten these down. And and we should be good to go after that. We'll see if the airbag light went away, and also, so that was the problem with this vehicle. I put it on the scanner, and so I put it on the scanner, and it was basically saying the ohms weren't reading in the clock spring, so I had a driver airbag code. And what really led me to knowing what the problem was before I even put it on the code reader is over time, I think I had it started in the steering wheel, or sorry, in the audio control, but when I went to volume down, my volume turned up. And it just started getting more and more crazy the older it got. So all of a sudden, like I didn't have any, you can change your functions to your mileage and what you're currently getting, this and that. And then I completely lost cruise control. But it was weird. If I hit like cancel, it would turn the cruise control on. If I hit like down, it would actually make me go faster. And then if I hit up, it was like as if I was hitting cancel. So everything in here got really jumbled up. So something for the ABS light to be on and these things not working right. It really, it already kind of hit home that something was wrong with the clock spring. Once you put the scanner on it, I saw the code. I had an advanced scanner that was actually telling me what the ohms were in the wires. So all those wires are supposed to be like 2 ohms. 2 of them were reading about 7 ohms. So there was, basically, definitely pinpointed, and I had a for sure answer that it was a clock spring. So other than that, now I got this cover back on. All I'm going to go do is attach the ground on the battery. I'll do that pretty quickly just in case it's still sprinkling outside. Other than that, that's what's crazy too. You see how touchy, even though the terminal is on, my lights are on, it flickers. It's very, very picky nowadays. That's why you have to make sure that your battery terminals are clean and clear. And actually, if you don't know this, I always keep, so this is a 10 mil, all that. I put it right here, and it's perfect. It stays there. I always have a battery changer, and it won't come out of here. Kind of a little sealed cubby. Other than that, we'll come back to the car. Now, I'm going to put the key in the ignition and test it, but I am not going to sit in front of that airbag just in case that clock spring is faulty. So I wouldn't sit there and, risk, taking the airbag hit, if you don't have to. So, because they are very violent. Alright, so car just booted on. My turn signal's on. Go ahead and start the car. And no more airbag light. Now let's see too. So I'm gonna hit the cruise control on. Oh, and it works. I have cruise control again. Wonderful. Let's see if I can change my... Alright, I can change all that again. Yeah, I was stuck. I mean, luckily I got stuck on range, so that's what I mainly use, but yeah, works great. If you still have a ABS code, a lot of times what it is too is I actually had another code, and check underneath your seats, and I would just disconnect those and connect them back in. A lot of times it's just poor connections. I don't know why. I just auto manufacturers, it's just poor connections for some reason with the seats. They have so many airbags now. There's a side curtain airbag, the seat airbags everywhere. So they just have a lot more connections and a lot more prone to failure. But other than that, yeah, that's a clock spring on a 2014 Kia Sorento. Thank you.